What if everything you thought you knew about reality was wrong? I mean, really wrong. Today we are diving deep into a theory that honestly pulls back the curtain on the entire universe. It suggests that what we see, what we feel, is just the surface layer of something much, much deeper.
So let's just start with this massive question. What if everything you perceive, space, time, the solid world around you, what if it isn't the fundamental reality at all? What if it's more like a user interface, like the desktop on your computer? It's a handy set of icons and folders that lets you interact with the millions of lines of code running underneath.
Okay, I know, that's a mouthful. But this is the core claim of the theory we're going to unpack today. And the idea behind it is profound. It's saying that before space, before time, before matter even existed, there was a foundation of pure relationships. This is the source code from which our entire universe is rendered.
To really wrap our heads around this, we have to be willing to set aside some of our most basic assumptions. We're essentially going on a journey to peel back the layers of what we call reality, to try and find a brand new foundation, one that exists beyond space and time as we know them.
Think of it like this. All the particles, all the waves, all the forces we study in physics, they aren't the source code of the universe. They're the output. They're the incredible graphics being rendered on the screen, generated by a much deeper set of rules that we never, ever get to see directly.
So how do we get from that deep, hidden code to, well, our reality? The theory says there's a three-layered structure to all of existence. So let's deconstruct the universe. Let's peel it back, layer by layer, and see what's really underneath.
Okay, so take a look here. At the very top, layer 1, that's our familiar world. Observable reality. It's everything physics currently studies. But dig a little deeper and you hit layer 2, relational geometry. This is where space and matter actually pop into existence, emerging from stable, coherent patterns of relationships. And then at the very, very bottom, layer 3, we find the substrate. This is a foundation of pure potential, a place that exists before even geometry is a thing.
Let's focus on that deepest layer for a second, the substrate. Now, what's so wild about this is that it's not made of stuff, It's not particles, it's not energy. It's a field of pure possibility. It's just a fundamental set of rules, the rules of the game, that govern how relationships are even allowed to form in the first place. It's the engine of reality itself.
Now, for a universe like ours to emerge, this substrate has to have 5 essential, non-negotiable properties. First, it's got to support reciprocity, two-way relationships. Second, it needs a way to organize itself, something like a phase or a wave. Third, there have to be rules about what's allowed and what isn't. That's constraint closure. Fourth, it needs a way for consistency to spread, to rebalance itself. And finally, it has to allow stable patterns to form, which is what we end up calling particles.
And all of this brings us to this central concept, the big idea, reciprocal admissibility. This is the absolute key. The universe isn't built from lonely, isolated objects floating in a void. It's built from a network of allowed, two-way, reciprocal relationships. A thing can only exist if all of its relationships with everything else are mutually permissible. It's a cosmic system of checks and balances.
Okay, so we've torn reality down to its absolute foundations. Now for the really fun part. Let's build it all back up. Let's see how this one principle of reciprocal admissibility completely reimagines our most basic concepts, and we'll start with space itself.
We all tend to think of space as this big, empty box that stuff exists inside of. But what if that's not right? In this new view, space isn't a container at all. It's an emergent property. It's the stable, geometric pattern that just appears when the network of relationships becomes locally consistent and self-supporting. Space is the pattern. It's not the box.
And what about time? Well, forget that idea of a universal river flowing for everyone at the same rate. Time is also emergent. It's simply the ordered sequence of internal changes happening inside a stable structure, like an atom. A different structure means a different clock. Time, it turns out, is local, not universal.
Now, this is a real mind-bender. We think of a photon as a little particle, a bullet traveling through space. But this theory says, nope, that's not quite right. Light itself is just a ripple of consistency, a propagating potential, moving through that deep substrate. The photon that we measure? That's just the event, the splash, that happens when that ripple hits a boundary, like the detector in our lab.
Gravity also gets a huge upgrade here. It's no longer some mysterious force pulling things together. Instead, think of a stable structure, like a planet, as a really dense knot in that deep network of relationships. Gravity is simply the way this incredibly dense knot warps the pattern of relationships all around it. It's not a pull, it's a distortion.
Okay, so if this model completely redefines space, time, light, and gravity, you might be wondering, so what? What does that actually do for us? Well, this is where the theory gets really, really powerful, because it offers some unbelievably elegant explanations for some of the biggest, most stubborn puzzles in physics, especially in the quantum world.
I mean, just look at how this framework makes sense of all that quantum weirdness. Entanglement, spooky action at a distance, it's not spooky at all. It's just two particles that are neighbors in that deeper, non-geometric substrate, even if they look far apart to us. And wave-particle duality, not a paradox. It's just two different ways these relational patterns can organize themselves. Things that were once bizarre suddenly start to feel, well, intuitive.
But the real test of any scientific theory isn't just about explaining the old stuff, it's about predicting new things we haven't seen yet. And this framework of reciprocal admissibility makes at least 5 very concrete, very testable predictions.
And here they are. The theory predicts that matter might behave less like a solid thing and more like a persistent, tangled knot in this deep relational field. It also suggests that we could actually find systems where our normal idea of space totally breaks down, but the underlying connections, the coherence, remain perfectly intact. These are things we can actually go out and look for.
So let's bring it all home with this powerful statement. Let it just sink in for a second. The universe isn't a collection of objects sitting inside a box called spacetime. The universe is the network of reciprocal, allowed relationships. Everything else, space, time, matter, you and me, all of it just emerges from that network. And the implication here is just massive. It means causality, the simple idea that cause has to come before effect, might not be the most fundamental law of the universe. It might just be a convenient ordering rule that emerges within our rendered reality, all built on a foundation of mutual, two-way relationship.
Which leaves us with one final, big thought to ponder. If the universe is fundamentally a network of relationships and not a collection of objects, then what does it even mean to be a thing? What does it mean to be you?